Personal titles. Do you know when to use a first name or a personal title when talking with a person? What's the difference between "Good morning, Laura," "Good morning, Mrs. Smith"? How you address a person depends on your relationship with the person. It is important to show respect when you are speaking to a stranger, a person you don't know, or to a person who has authority, like your boss or a police officer. You can show respect by using personal titles when you speak. There are two kinds of personal titles: titles that have no name after it, and titles that are used with a last name, surname, family name of a person. Here are some common personal titles used with a last name: Mr., Mrs., Miss, Ms. Let's look at the personal title Mr. Listen and repeat. Mr. We use the title Mr. with a man's last name. Another word for last name is family name. Another word for family name is surname. In English, there are three words for the same word: last name, family name, surname. We also use the title Mr. with a man who is single or married. And why do we use the title? Because maybe you don't know the man, or you do know the man, but you want to show respect. You want to be polite because the man has authority. So let's look at the example. Nice to meet you, Mr. Smith. So here, this is the first time he is meeting this person, so he uses the title Mr. Maybe he is his boss. Let's look at the personal title Mrs. Listen and repeat. Mrs. We use the title Mrs. with the woman's last name, and we use Mrs. only for married women. Why do we use Mrs.? The same reasons as we use Mr. You don't know the woman, or you want to show respect because the woman has authority. Let's take a look at example. How are you, Mrs. Smith? So here are two people talking in the office, and because the woman said Mrs. Smith, we know that perhaps Mrs. Smith is her boss or her supervisor, and she wants to show respect and be polite. How are you, Mrs. Smith? Let's look at the personal title Miss. Listen and repeat. Miss. Miss is used with a woman's last name. Do you remember another word for last name? That's right. Family name and surname. And we use Miss with a young woman who is single. Remember, Mrs. is for a married woman. Miss is for a young woman. Maybe you don't know the woman, but you see that she is young, and maybe you know she is single, so you say Miss. Or you want to show respect and be polite because the woman has authority. Let's take a look at the example. So there's a student and the teacher, and the student says to the teacher, Miss Veloso, when is the test? The teacher is young and single, so he says Miss Veloso, and he also says Miss Veloso because she is his teacher. She has authority. Let's look at the personal title Ms. Listen and repeat. Ms. Ms. is used with a last name, and it is used with a single or married young or old woman. The age doesn't matter. The marital status doesn't matter. Why use Ms.? Because you don't know the woman's marital status, you don't know the woman, or the woman has a position of authority and you want to show respect. You want to be polite. So we have seen so far 4 personal titles that need a last name after it. Mr. for a man, married or single, young or old. Mrs. for a married woman. Miss is for a young single woman. And Ms. you can use married, single, young, or old. So let's look at the student. The student this time says, "Hi, Ms. Jackson." He doesn't know if his teacher is married, so he says, "Ms." And why does he use a personal title? Because he wants to show respect. He definitely knows his teacher, but he wants to show respect. Here are some common personal titles that are not used with a last name. They are sir, ma'am, and miss. Let's take a look at sir. Listen and repeat. Sir. With the title sir, you use no name, no family name, no last name, no surname. And sir can be used with a man who is single or married. You use the title sir when you don't know the name, when you want to be polite. Never use Mr. Let's take a look at an example. You are in a restaurant and you want to get the attention of your waiter, a male server. So you say, "Excuse me, sir." You are stopped by a police officer and the police asks you a question and he says, do you know why I stopped you? And you say, "No, sir." Another personal title that you don't use a last name with or a name with is ma'am. Ma'am is the short form, is the abbreviation of madam. So repeat after me. Ma'am. Ma'am. So with the personal title ma'am, no name is used. And ma'am is used with a married woman or an older woman. Why do you use the personal title ma'am? Because you don't know the name of the woman you are talking to. You want to be polite. You respond politely to something a woman says. You don't use lady. So let's look at an example. You are at a restaurant. The waiter asks you, "May I help you, ma'am?" And with the man, he says, "May I help you, sir?" So you notice there is no name after ma'am and sir. Let's look at the title Miss. Listen and repeat. Miss. So we've seen Miss with a last name, but we can also use Miss with no last name. And we use Miss with a young single woman. And we use Miss because you don't know the name, you want to be polite. So the police officer, let's look at the example. The police officer talks to the young lady and he goes, "Miss, do you know why I stopped you?" And the young lady says, "No, sir." So Miss is a personal title And sir is a personal title, but we don't use a name after them.